Kia ora koutou. Welcome to the ACE RMO 2025 Palmerston North webinar. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Sam and I am the ACE RMO consultant, and we're going to start off with an opening karakia by Dr. Janine Stevens, and then I will give everyone just a brief outline of today's webinar. So Janine, I'm going to hand over to you.
Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hia ki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, te hei mauri ora. Thank
you so much. So what we'll do is we'll move on to the panelist introduction shortly. During this webinar, we will have a presentation that has been put together by our wonderful panelists. So thank you so much. And our panelists will present to that. We will also have an RMO representative that will tell you a bit more about their experience at the hospital. Towards the end of the webinar, there will be a live Q&A session. So please feel free to drop any questions that may come to mind. There should be a Q&A box above, and we will answer those towards the end of the webinar. So I am now going to hand over to our wonderful panelists to introduce themselves.
Kia ora, Sam, and thank you very much for your welcome to us. I'm Christine Wood. I'm the manager of the Medical Administration Unit here at Palmerston North Hospital.
I'm Fergus. I'm one of the PGY1 doctors.
Kia ora koutou, ko Janine Stevens toko ingoa. I'm a public health physician here at Palmerston North Hospital. I'm also a PES, a pre-vocational educational supervisor, and also the director of medical training.
Tessa.
Kia ora, my name's Tessa. I'm one of the PGY2 house officers in Palmerston North.
Thank you so much. I am now going to share a presentation and then I'll hand back over to you.
So again, welcome everyone who's on the webinar today. We think that Palmerston North is New Zealand's best kept secret. It's one of those cities that people have not necessarily ever been to, but there's a lot of super cool things that go on in and around the city, and the hospital is a really good place to work. First of all, where is Palmy? It's in the centre of the lower North Island, and it's not far from lots of places, and we'll talk about that a bit more later. And now there's just a series of scenes from around our city and the region, which Sam's just going to go through at a nice slow pace. There's always lots of things to do. Hiking trails and mountain bike trails, the beach isn't far away, lots of exciting things to do in your off time. This is our hospital. So just a little bit. So Palmerston North City is in the heart of the Manawatu in the lower North Island. The Manawatu River runs through the city, and they've done a lot of work over the time that I've lived in the region, which is 40 years now, so I'm aging myself a little bit, with a beautiful park, a beautiful walkway that goes further than the whole length of the city. It goes all the way out to Linton and London and Ashurst in the other direction. So you can walk, you can run, you can bike. It's a well-paved walkway along the Manawatu River, and there's lots of other beautiful outdoor spaces, including the Esplanade. As I mentioned before, it's only 30 minutes to the beach, so we may not be coastal, but arguably you can get to a beach quicker from Palmerston North than you can from some parts of Auckland. The Ruahenis and the Tararuas are great places for tramping. I think you've done some tramping, Fergus.
And both, yes.
Yeah, up in that area. Couple of hours to Wellington and getting less as time goes by with the motorway extending out of Wellington. Couple of hours to the ski fields, and there's other great places like Hawke's Bay, New Plymouth and Martinborough. We offer some really cool things. Palmerston North has more cafes and restaurants per head of population than anywhere else in New Zealand. There's no traffic jams. I think if we stop at the lights once on our way to work, we feel like we've had a bad run, which makes getting to work easy, but also getting out of town for the weekend. So whereas in Wellington or Auckland, you'd probably still be struggling to get out of the hospital vicinity, you can be halfway up the road to wherever you're going for your weekend away. The main city is very flat, so it's great for biking and walking. The airport is 10 minutes from the city, from the hospital. The central city is also 10 minutes from the hospital. There's lots of good accommodation near at hand. And if you are so inclined, you can look at the options of buying a house and things to keep you invigorated and some places for chilling out. Tessa and Fergus, do you want to tell us about some of the things you like to do on your downtime?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So this year I really got into running, and that's because Palmy is totally flat. You've got some beautiful mountain ranges around, like the Tararuas and the Ruahines. So this weekend we went to the Tararuas with one of my friends, and we went up to Climb Hut, which is 1,500 metres up. Wow. And it overlooked Wellington, so it was pretty fantastic, and that's only an hour away. So that's I guess south of Palmy, and then north of Palmy you've got the Ruahines. I started my first run on Opal, and the first 2 days were actually RDOs. So that was me and Amy, who's one of the PGY ones, and we went to the Ruahines and did this loop called Dead Man's Track, and it's a 6-hour loop. It was fantastic. And yeah, running, I really gotten into that this year. There's as Christine was saying, there's the track out to Linton. So I think it's about 16 kilometres, the paved bit, and then it kind of stops and you can get back on it to go to Ashurst, which would continue for 40 kilometres or something like that. But yeah, I'm training for a marathon at the moment, which is awesome because it's totally flat. I think over the 30 Ks that I ran yesterday, it was probably only like 20 metres of ascending. So it's a good place to beat your best time. Something else that I got into recently is the fitness passport. So this is available to, I think, every employee of Fit Central. So you pay $15 per week and you get access to multiple different gyms and other facilities like the Lido Aquatic Centre. So actually tonight after this, I'm going with a couple of the colleagues to go for a swim at the Lido, and a couple of my flatmates go to Zenith Fitness, so I join them for that. I also play squash. There's a fantastic squash facility with 8 glass-backed squash courts. So I've kind of transitioned to running, but I'll plan on getting back into squash, and there's a good culture there. Done a couple of tournaments there. They're into their doubles. It's a very niche hobby, but it's fun to get into. And then also the mountain biking is fantastic. It's really developed over the last 5 years. It's called Arapuki, and it's about 30 minutes from town. It's up in the Tararuas. It's comparable to what you'd get in Wellington. So if you're into mountain biking, you don't need to be in Wellington or Rotorua or Queenstown. You can come to Palmy. Yeah, Tessa, what about yourself?
I feel a little bit not as active as Fergus. I'm in awe of him. My partner and I have recently got a puppy. So all of the walkways and all of the parks and everything have been fantastic. Now we can finally walk him and he's all vaccinated. Just great for animals and socializing and things like that. I think I saw Christine had a photo of my gym on there. I go to BFT down the road. I got manipulated by a registrar at 2 a.m. once to sign up, and I've never stepped away. Love going down there. Heaps of the hospital staff, a lot of the nurses train there as well, which is awesome. I'm sure a couple of my friends from the gym on that poster would be mortified to know that they're on this PowerPoint. I love a good coffee. I'm a little bit of a coffee snob, and there's some really good coffee in Palmerston North. Some really cute cafes that are great to sit at and read a book if you're that way inclined, or study, which I've recently gotten back into and have found a good few wee places to set up with my laptop. Or even just taking a good takeaway coffee down to the river is really, really nice. Lots of great places to eat, which I love. And as Fergus said, like close to heaps of walking and hiking. I recently did the Tongariro crossing in a day. Like we just got up really early in the morning, drove and did it all in one day, which is awesome. I don't think many people in New Zealand can just smash that into one of their days off, which is cool.
Thank you, guys. Janine and I have slightly different lifestyles, so probably not as engaging for soon-to-be PGY1 house officers. But I believe there's quite a keen quiz competition. So I think that there's registrars versus house officer quizzes at some of the pubs that run quizzes, so it's just quite competitive. I think there's also indoor netball that people, there's groups from here that play indoor netball, and things like soccer and other things. So there's lots of different sports. I was also just talking to one of our anaesthetists whose daughter happens to be in the School of Rock, which is the production that's coming up over the holidays. It's a semi-professional production. We've got lots of live theatre in and around the vicinity of the city, so there's lots of things in that field as well. And if you're into things more like dance or music or whatever, there are lots of opportunities in that area as well. Okay, so about our district and the hospital. Regionally, we cover the area from Peka Peka in the south to Apiti in the north, and from the Tasman Sea to the Pacific Ocean. So it's quite a broad region with quite a lot of rural hinterland. We have 354 beds approximately, and we have most clinical services with the exception of plastics, cardiothoracic and neurosurgery. The new mental health ward is soon to be handed over, so I think that will open for patients probably July, August this year. And we have a regional cancer treatment service, which not only means that our cancer treatment service is tertiary, which brings lots of interest for people who are interested in haematology, medical oncology or radiation oncology, but it does also bring a slightly higher level of surgical procedures that are done here than you might expect for a district of our size, because obviously sometimes the surgery is done in conjunction with the cancer treatment. There's about 170 SMOs and 180 house officers and registrars. It's a collegial place to work, isn't it? Tessa and Fergus can talk to that.
Yeah, I think for me, well, I was here as a trainee intern, and I think one of the main reasons why I came back is because of the culture. It seems to be a very supportive culture. Especially when you're starting, it's very nerve-wracking to get on the end of a phone and call your registrar, but I never actually felt like I was getting drilled for anything. Also, the other house officers are always keen to help. Yeah, I think it's a supportive environment to start. Yeah, and even, typically you find that, medical registrars might be a bit more pleasant and surgical ones might be a bit more harsh, but actually that's not necessarily the case. I think everyone's very helpful.
Yeah, I can second that as well. One of the big reasons that made me want to stay as a trainee intern as well was the collegiality here. It's a real tight-knit group because there's only 20 odd of you starting as a PGY1 and you all get to know each other really, really well. And then sort of the PGY2s kind of take you all under their wing as well and look after you. All the registrars know who you are. All the bosses are extremely approachable and fun. It's quite a laid back environment a lot of the time, and it just sort of feels like it fosters sort of learning and great collegiality.
And as it says on the slide, some of our SMOs were formerly house officers here. It's quite interesting sometimes. We just had someone come in the other day who was here as a registrar a few years ago and they're just starting as a consultant in neurology. So yeah, it's interesting seeing them come through. Some of us have been around long enough to have seen them coming through from house officer through to consultant.
I was a pharmacy intern here, actually.
Right.
I did pharmacy before I did medicine, so I worked in this hospital as a pharmacy intern
There you
back
go.
in the mid-90s, and I've come back. Great decision to do. Yeah.
So we have quite a range of runs. As you can see, on one side we've got our PGY1 runs, on the other side we've got our PGY2. I guess PGY1 predominantly will be the things you'd expect to be doing, and with the exceptional practice of O&G in quarter 4, because I don't think every district offers that, and we will also offer psychiatry for PGY1s, usually in the second half of the year. Things get a little bit more interesting in PGY2. We've got some great community-based attachments now. Our newest one literally started yesterday, which is out in Dannevirke, which is at the moment probably about an hour's drive, but will be significantly shorter when the new Manawatu Gorge Road opens in about a month and a bit, I think. And so I think it'll bring it down to about 45, 40 minutes over there. And that run will include working with a Māori iwi provider and also working in a rural hospital. We have a run at our local hospice. We have, in addition to the Dannevirke one, we have about 5 other general practices around the city, including another Māori iwi provider. And we have a St John ambulance run, which Tessa has just literally finished over the weekend. You want to tell people a little bit about that, Tessa?
Oh, I'm actually like super sad at the moment that I've left St John's and that I have to come back to the hospital. I had like the best 3 months. So we had this wonderful registrar who, if you come to Palmy, you'll meet, called Stuart Curran. He's a very good ally to have. And he set up a run with the St John's crew a couple of years ago as a community run. So 4 people get to go every year if you're lucky enough, and you get to go out with our critical care paramedics. So if you ever see them driving around in their utes, so you go with them, you go to back up other crews when they need you, and you respond to the high acuity jobs, so arrests or really sick people, basically. It was an amazing experience. I got so much experience from a skills perspective. I just got to see a whole bunch of different things. I feel like I've really developed a lot of my skills, and also get to see a different part of healthcare and see what it's like for patients before they get into the hospital. And, they don't all just rock up to the door packaged up. There's a lot of work that gets done. I think it's a really, really valuable opportunity. It's a really unique opportunity. I'm probably just going to rave about it till I'm blue in the face for the rest of my life. Hopefully going to stay on and volunteer with them in the future, because I loved it.
Cool. And I know some other districts are now starting to offer the St John's run, but we were the first. And as Tessa said, it was because Stuart was really keen to do it himself as a CBA. And so we worked with the Medical Council to get it approved. And it's been very successful ever since. I think our first one might have been 23 or 22. And I think we've had maybe 1 quarter the entire time when we haven't had someone wanting to go. Other runs, of course, that are interesting once you get further through are things like haematology, medical oncology, radiation oncology, renal, ENT ophthalmology, paediatrics, which you can do from the second half of PGY2. And then when you get into PGY3, we have a really popular ICU SHO run. It's a great leader for people who are particularly keen on doing anaesthesia. But it also leads into people who want to do intensive care. So quite a common pattern here would be for people to do an ED run sometime in their PGY2 year, apply for SHO and ICU, and then from there apply for anaesthesia training. And that's very popular. So what should you put in your application for ACE if you are thinking about coming to Palmerston North? And hopefully most of you have already started your ACE applications, because the time will come around pretty quickly now. It's really good to have a cover letter. We like to see a specific letter that refers to Palmerston North. If you are actually wanting to come to us, just telling us a little about why you think you want to come to Palmy, if you've got any particular links in the city or the region, those sorts of things. CVs, we want to know a little bit about you as a person. So what you do in your spare time, what your hobbies are, previous employment, including holiday jobs, and other qualifications, because obviously sometimes people have got an undergraduate degree. As Janine said, she was a pharmacist first. Fergus has got an undergraduate degree. So it's good to know what else people have done before they've gone into medicine. We don't interview here. I know some districts do, but we don't. But we certainly welcome visits and phone calls. So, and we can also obviously do a Teams or a Zoom. So if you're going to be in the region, or if you want to make a special trip to come and visit us, just let us know. Even if it's a weekend, what I'll usually try and do is link you up with one of the house officers who's on over the weekend, and they can kind of show you around a little bit and give you the real lowdown on what it's actually like to work in Palmy. If it's during the week, then I'll obviously meet with you as well, and also link you in with the house officer to tell you a bit more about the hospital. We will consider part-time positions, but it would be good to have a conversation with you about what that might look like prior to us receiving your application through ACE. So then we're looking out for you when we receive our applications. I might let Tessa and Fergus talk a little bit about our teaching program, and Janine might want to have a little bit of conversation about that as well. We're pretty proud of our teaching program here, and one of the things I feel that we've done very successfully is have a medical education house officer. Coincidentally, that's the run Tessa's just started on Monday. Do you want to just talk a bit about that role and how it's worked, Tessa, as your experience on the other side of being an intern receiving teaching?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much I can speak to doing the job because I've been on RDOs for the first 2 days of the run, but basically there's a medical education role here for PGY2s, so it's 0.5 medical education and 0.5 relief, either surgical or medical, generally surgical, but you can chat with Christine and Lindy about which one you'd prefer. So you spend 2 days a week being the education house officer and organising all the teaching, and I guess in a somewhat of a peer support role as well, I guess given your proximity, you're sitting in the RMO room all day and you've kind of got your finger on the pulse of what's happening for everyone. The teaching program is therefore run by us, so we as PGY2s know what's valuable and what's really, really helpful and what you're going to want to know in those first couple of weeks, and have the ability to chat with you guys and see where maybe you need a bit more teaching and learning, and we can cater that to you. And so we get all sorts of people from all over the hospital doing some awesome teaching for you. In the first kind of quarter, it's focused around really core things like fluid reviews and ECGs, and really helpful things, radiology, like checking PICC lines and NGs. And then throughout the year, we get some other really useful teaching sessions that give you really great tools from our PIOTA team and from our family violence team, and niche other specialties like obstetrics, gynecology, pediatrics, to give you a bit of a taster of the things they do.
Cool. We also have a pre-vocational educational supervisor who is Māori, and that is Janine. And so we are able to give any interns who identify as Māori the opportunity to have Janine as their pre-vocational educational supervisor. We also, both Tessa and Fergus were here as trainee interns, so we get a group of approximately 12, I think, for the year.
I think it's 16.
Oh, 16, beg your pardon. 16 who are there here for most of the year except for their elective. That's probably why I think 12, because probably 4 of them are away on elective at any given time. And then there's some others who come up for specific runs like pediatrics or general practice or whatever. So that's really good because a lot of our house officers are involved with the teaching program for our trainee interns. And one of those little quirky things is we have a high incidence of malignant hypothermia in our region. There's a large Māori family based in the Otaki region who have that gene, and so all anaesthesia patients are screened, and we run a program so that people can be tested ahead of time to see whether they've got the MH susceptibility. So that's quite a cool thing. O-Week. Do you want to talk about O-Week since you most recently did it?
Yeah, it feels like a while ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah, O-Week's it's fun. You get paid for it, which was a bonus, and you get paid the rate at which run you're about to do next, even though you're only there for like 8 hours a day. And yeah, you go through a bunch. It's kind of a week where you're orientating yourself, so you're learning the computer systems. You also have a few teaching situations on like what to do in certain emergencies. So you kind of go into your first run feeling somewhat prepared. I think you never feel fully prepared. But yeah, it definitely makes starting a lot less scary. Yeah.
One of the things we're hoping to do for next year is actually extend it. So it's been a 4-day orientation. We're hoping, but fingers crossed, we get permission to have a 5-day orientation. And if we are able to do that, the 5th day, the Friday, you'll actually spend the whole day with the team that you're going to go on to the following Monday. Although actually it will be a Tuesday here because Wellington Anniversary will be the starting day. And so that should mean that you know your patients a little bit. And so we really think that will give you a good head start. You'll know your registrar, you'll meet your consultant, and you'll know the patients that are going to be on your team that first day. And then the other thing that's been very successful over the last 2 years, in addition to doing a long day during orientation week, we also have set up a system whereby there's a PGY2 available, usually PGY2, sometimes PGY3, available during your first long day as well. So you've got someone who you can kind of call for all those little things, or you've forgotten how to do something, or you don't know where to find your way to wherever you've been paged to go to. And that seems to have worked really well. I think the house officers, the 2 years we've run that, have really enjoyed that extra support for their first long days.
Yeah, definitely doing the supported long day was a major bonus.
So some of the things that are good about Palmerston North in terms of the runs, you get lots of hands-on experience. That's some of the feedback that we regularly get from our house officers, is they get lots of chances to do things. Lots of our house officers who do O&G will do the O&G diploma. PEDS, people will do the PEDS diploma, and people will do that either because they're wanting an O&G or a PEDS career, or because they want to go to general practice, and the diploma is useful for either of those. I talked before about the ICU job in the 3rd year. That gives people really good experience. ED, we would normally encourage people to do 6 months, and again, you get a really good experience in the emergency department, and our consultants down there are very focused on teaching. There's good teaching in the department. We've talked already about the medical education house officer. And if you're surgically minded and you want to go to theatre, then, we encourage our house officers to work collegially and support each other to get those opportunities. If you're not so surgically oriented and you're not so fussed on going to theatre, then, you might help out your colleague who does want to do that. Continuing medical education from PGY2 onwards, we will support what you're wanting to do in terms of education, providing that it's appropriate for your level and also in line with your vocational aspirations. And Tessa, I think you're doing the O&G diploma this year.
Yeah. Did you want me to talk about that?
Yeah, that would be
Sorry.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, so I've started the O&G diploma via Otago this year. I actually completed one of the papers at the end of PGY1 just because I had some spots and thought I'd get a jump start on it and spread it out a little bit. I did the 4th quarter PGY1 O&G job. Really enjoyed it, had lots of cool experiences, very hands-on, which was great. Was able to start my logbook early, and then I'm going back for the second half of the year. So to do the diploma, you need a 6-month job in O&G, and there's 4 papers throughout the year of fortnightly lectures and assignments associated with it, 2 3-day residential courses based out of Christchurch, and then a final course and assessment in Wellington at the end of the year. I found the department really keen to get me involved early on last year, knowing that I was planning on signing up to do the diploma. They were keen to help me start getting things for my logbook. They're really focused on learning and teaching and providing me with those opportunities, which was really cool.
Excellent. And when we know that people are keen to do, so O&G is usually a 6-month run, PEDS is usually a 6-month run, ED is usually a 6-month run, so 2 quarters. And if we know people are really keen to do a couple of those in their PGY2 year, we will work with them to try and pop them out to a community-based attachment in their 4th quarter of PGY1. So, if you get here and those are the things you're thinking of doing in PGY2, don't be afraid to come and talk to us about that, because, especially when people have got particular plans in terms of their training pathway, It can feel frustrating if you end up having to do your community-based attachment partway through what you'd hoped would be a 6-month run. So we try and work really hard on that. We've talked a bit about teaching, but protected teaching here is from 12 to 1 every Tuesday and Friday. We've talked about the fact that a lot of it is from RMOs to RMOs, so near to peer, which is a really good way to teach. Training intern teaching sessions as well. PGY 2 teaching just goes a bit more in depth, as Tessa said, into some of the subspecialties that you might be wanting to learn a bit more about. All the departments will have some form or other of grand rounds. There's MDT meetings, there's department-specific teaching, including simulations, and we have a really good library here as well. Here's our RMO space. So there's a sleeping space for sleeping when you're on nights. There's quite a nice sort of kitcheny area with the, as you can see, the lockers just behind it, and then there's a bit of a lounge, and then the far end is a computer room, which you can use. Obviously people use it for getting their lists for handover, but also if you're studying, you can go down there and study. There's also study spaces in our clinical library as well. And it's really close, like literally from the RMO lounge to the wards is like, you just go out the door, down the hallway, about 100 metres, and you're in the lifts to the tower block to all the wards. So you're not tucked away in the back of Beyond. And as a result, it's a really popular lounge. People are in there all the time when they're not working, and it's quite a communal place. People will sit and chat and have lunch or catch up at the end of the day before they go off to do their after work activities. And the medical administration unit, our office, is just right as you come in. So we're very accessible as well. Again, in some districts, RMO offices are tucked away in the back of Beyond, but we're just right there by the lounge. Leave is generally easy to get, and we do encourage people to start planning their leave. If you're placed with us with the ACE matching program, we will run a session. I think we do it kind of October, just kind of going over some of the housekeeping things that it's good to know. And one of the things we talk about then is being a bit strategic about planning some leave. If you've got some important dates you need, get them in straight away, like, you know, you're getting married, your best friend's getting married, your mum's turning 50, those sorts of things that you know you're going to want. The sooner you can tell us those dates, the better. But if you just want to have a break and you're a bit flexible about your dates, then you can just pop into the unit, have a chat to usually Lindy, and just say, look, I just like have a couple of weeks off sometime in Q3, and then she can just look at when there's some spare time available. We also have a relatively semi-regular catch-up with the interns just to talk about any issues and concerns that people might have. And normally Janine will come to that, I'll come to that, and we're trying to encourage some operations executives as well, because often the things that affect our RMOs are not things that Janine and I can specifically affect any change about.
Yeah, usually operational things rather than educational things. So, yeah.
The CAF, I'll let the Tessa and Fergus talk about the CAF food.
Oh, I love the cat food.
Yeah, I feel like Fergus is best placed to talk about this.
Yeah, well, I did, I guess I've done some runs in Wellington Hospital and Hutt Hospital, and Palmy definitely exceeds the Konokai Cafe at Palmerston North Hospital, definitely exceeds both of them. You've often got 2 different hot meals, a meat-based one and a vegetarian one. There's a good selection of cabinet food. Often there's like a croissant or a panini, salads. There's a range of slices. There's like protein bars, or the protein yogurts are fantastic. They're a new addition from last year. If your team doesn't buy you coffees, then there's monsters on offer. Somehow sugary drinks aren't allowed, but non-sugary monsters are allowed. Yeah,
full of caffeine, but
yeah. They're fantastic. What else? There's like a pie cabinet. There's a sandwich cabinet. So there's heaps of options, and
I'm hungry.
yeah, and I definitely enjoy it.
There's also a huge range of frozen meals as well, which are really, really good if you're in a rush. You can just grab them and put them aside as well. Or if there's not anything that does spin your wheels in the hot meals, there's always like a good butter chicken or macaroni cheese or something that'll get you through a long day.
And then for nights, you can order your own, version of what you want. So if you forget to order, they'll always provide just some basics, some sandwiches, some yogurts and fruit. But if you do remember to do your night order, then you'll get what you've selected off a range of options. I can't really speak to the night meals in terms of their quality, but I think they're not too bad, Tessa.
Yeah, they're all right. And if you do forget them, there's always something, and there's a couple of those frozen meals often in the freezer. And if you do come to Palmy, come find me. I'll tell you where to find cheese and stuff, and you can make cheese toasties in the middle of the night if you want to.
Sounds good. We're quite a social hospital in terms of RMOs doing things socially together, but also with other workforce groups. So this was a board a couple of years ago, and in addition to lots of our RMOs being in those photos, there's also nursing and allied people having a really good time.
And you.
And
Is that you in the orange?
Possibly, yes.
Looks, yeah. You're there, Christine.
True. Should have photoshopped that one out. Yeah. So yeah, that's the salary scale effective from the 7th of July this year. So that will be the rates you come in. Most of our PGY1 runs are either a Cat D or a Cat C. It depends what run you're doing and the time of the year, because the categories are a little bit lower in the first 6 months when you're not doing nights, and they tend to be a little bit higher in the second 6 months when you're doing nights. But it's a bit variable from run to run. Rent is still affordable in Palmerston North, and also it's still quite realistic for people to buy houses, and it's one of the things that surprised me a little bit over the last few years is how many of our house officers will buy their own properties. Ideally, from our point of view, it's because you're intending to stay around for a long time, but even if you're not, and most people will need to go somewhere for some of their training because we don't have that tertiary level experience that people will need. But it's a good way to invest in the property market, have a house that you can come back to when you come back as an SMO, or alternatively to use as a step onto the property market in a bigger city. So it's a really good place to live from that point of view. And it doesn't take long to work, to get to work. That map shows someone who lives up Summerhill, which is literally the other side of the city from the hospital. And it really doesn't take long. That is obviously by car, but Summerhill, as the name suggests, is a hill. So if you wanted to, you could bike, and probably would take you significantly more time because it's a nice downhill. A little bit harder going home at night up the hill. So it's an easy city to live in. It's hard to find a traffic jam. You have to look really hard to find one. Nice environment to work in, good food, good housing market, good teaching program, lots of opportunities for clinical growth, easy to get some opportunities for some practical procedures, and will prepare you well for other hospitals. But also it's comparatively easy to start training here depending on what you're wanting to train in. You can step up into an ED registrar position, a med-reg position. We talked before about the ICU pathway into anaesthesia training, so a number of people come through here from ICU and into anaesthesia training, radiation oncology, O&G. We have a reasonable number of people who step up from house officer to O&G registrar. Paediatrics is the same. The exception, I guess, in terms of actually literally stepping up while you're here would be the surgical specialties, because as you may be aware, you normally need to do several years as a non-training registrar in any of the surgical specialty areas before you get onto training. However, the opportunities you get here set you up really well, and there's some quirky little things that you learn, like for example, if you're interested in ophthalmology, you can do cataracts in Palmerston North, whereas I believe in the bigger centres, they're not doing cataracts in the hospital, so you're not getting those opportunities to do some of those relatively basic procedural skills that you'll get to do in a smaller centre. Any comments, Ferguson, Tessa, about any of that?
Oh, I have to agree with it being a very easy city to live in. Like, it's just so quick to get anywhere. Like, no matter what form you take, like in a car, you can boost across town in 5 minutes. On a bike, it wouldn't be much longer, and it's flat, so you can actually walk everywhere as well. It's cheap to live in. I pay $185 for rent. I've got my own room. I think it's a 4 or 5 year old house. It's a new build.
So not like a Dunedin flat.
No, brand new. I live 10 minutes away from work by walking. I walk most mornings or bike. There's a bike shed which you can put your bike in. It's just a code and it's totally secure. I think we've got one of the cheapest fuel prices in New Zealand. Maybe only Rotorua or Wanganui would beat it actually. It's close to Wellington. It's close to everywhere actually. It's central. Yeah, it's a good place to live.
Yeah, I second that. I pay a bit more in rent than Fergus does. It's just me and my partner though, in a 2-bedroom to ourselves. We rented off an old ED registrar, which is great, and we are a 5-10 minute walk to the hospital as well. Something I've got very accustomed to is walking to work, studying in Wellington as well. I grew up in Christchurch, so I'm used to like quite a bit of traffic, but I go home now and I cannot stand like 5 minutes of traffic. Like induces road rage in me because I'm so used to just being able to get anywhere in Palmerston North really, really quickly. It's a really accessible city. I love it here. Yeah.
Cons, it's probably fair to say we're a little behind the 8 ball with our technology, unfortunately. And we do still have old-fashioned pages, not a smart page system, but we are rolling out MedChart. It's underway in quite a number of areas of the hospital already, and by the middle of June, I think it'll be fully rolled out across the hospital, and we will have the latest version of MedChart. So our pharmacists are thrilled. Already they're seeing a decrease in medication errors, so that's a real positive for our patients. We're not Auckland, we're not Sydney, we're not London, but it's not a bad little city, and for the size of the city, it's got a lot of things that you might not expect it to have. It's also quite an ethnically diverse city. We've got Massey University and a large International Pacific College, which brings in a lot of people from different parts of the world. And our workforce here at the hospital is also very ethnically diverse. So you're going to get lots of exposure to lots of different cultural groups, cultural activities, all of those sorts of things as well around the city.
And it's interesting that we've got not a bustling city on our comms, because I'd have to say that it's a pro, but maybe that's just showing my age. It is like Fergus was saying, and Tessa, it makes it easy to get around. You can get to the things you want. You don't have to park too far away from just about anything in town. So it is also a pro, I think. So yeah.
I think just on the note of technology as well, we've recently in some meetings with Christine and some other operations managers brought up that there's some issues with pages for out of hours house officers, with often the pager numbers being incorrect and things like that. We've actually just come up with a solution that we just buy 4 phones for the 4 on-call house officers in the evening. So we're in the process of rolling that out. I find often the RMO unit's quite responsive to suggestions and ideas from RMOs, I think, because it's small and you know them and they know you and they know about your life, and you can have quite a good working relationship with them as well, which you may not always get in a bigger centre.
We have photos of Tessa's puppy. That's our in touch.
Too cute.
Next. So that's the end of our presentation. I hope that has given you a really good overview of our hospital, but we're certainly happy to receive some questions.
Thank you. That was really, really informative. I don't think you've left any space for anyone to ask questions, because I felt like you guys really covered it all, which was amazing. Thank you. So on that, I'm just going to have a quick look at the Q&A box. I do have one or two general questions that maybe weren't covered that have been coming through with previous webinars. The first one was a few people had asked about any research opportunities.
There are research opportunities. Most of that, I think, will be a bit opportunistic and based on what you want to do. We've got quite a number of, I used to have a research medical advisor role here at the hospital a couple of years ago, so that's how I know a little bit about the research. But there's a number of SMOs here who are pretty keen on research. We actually have a clinical trials unit within the Regional Cancer Treatment Service. So if you're interested in cancer research, we've got a whole clinical trials unit staffed by a number of nurses and obviously supported by the SMOs. We do also get registrar research coming through because a lot of registrars on training programs need to do research projects. We've got a really supportive, our Paiora Māori health team are really supportive in terms of talking through equity and Māori health issues if you're wanting to do some research. And another thing is that even starting with audits and things like that is often a good way to get yourself involved in some form of research. Often audits will then come up with more questions, which then creates research projects. So there is a research support officer here who, if you are thinking about doing something, you can phone her or email her, and she's happy to talk with you. And there are a few other people that have some experience in ethics and various other things. Like you were saying, most people are pretty collegial, so it's quite, once you've found the right person, you're usually away laughing because people are more than happy to sit down and talk to you about their research interests, your research interests, and how we can put it all together for you. So we do have some of that stuff going on here.
I'll finish off with maybe one other question. So I know that in your presentation you had mentioned a cover letter and a CV was quite important in terms of your selection criteria. Is there anything else that an applicant can be aware of to stand out within their application? Is there any other selection criteria?
I mean, we obviously look at references as well and academic records. So, you know, it's important that when you're selecting your referees, you think carefully about who you're going to ask to be a referee for you. And I guess it's quite good, and I appreciate that sometimes that's easier said than done because it might depend what you've done already in your trainee intern year. But I like to see references from 3 different runs if possible, because then I think it gives us a bit of a breadth. Whereas, you know, if 2 of your referees are from psychiatry or 2 of your referees are from general practice or whatever, we don't kind of feel that we're getting such a broad impression of how you've done across a bunch of runs. Because whether you think that it's something you're going to do longer term or not, a PGY 1 and 2 year does involve doing a bunch of different runs, and so it's good for us to get a feel for the fact that actually, even if the last thing you think you want to do is obstetrics and gynecology, you've done well in your O&G run, or the last thing you think you want to do is psychiatry, you've actually done well in your run. So think about your referees carefully when you're choosing your referees. Academic records, obviously we look at those as well. If you've had a gap, it's quite important to explain your gaps. There's lots of reasons why people have gaps. Sometimes it's for personal health reasons. Sometimes it's just because you got to the end of, you know, 4th year and thought, I'm not really sure if this is what I want to do. Some people do the postgraduate year, which adds another year into your training. So when we're looking at academic records, we're looking for gaps. And so then we want, or longer period of time studying. So then we kind of want to know, okay, so why is it taking this person a bit longer to go through training? So it's quite good to put that in your cover letter as well.
I think often it's a positive thing when you have to gap out. We just want to get to know who you are and how you've got to where you've got to. And often those things are actually really can be quite positive to go, oh, they took a year out because they had this ambition to, I don't know, run a marathon in 10 of the biggest cities in the world. I don't know, whatever, you know, it's really interesting to hear about who you are as well. We like that, don't we? Yeah.
That's great, thank you. I guess, Christine, I just wanted to check with you. You had mentioned that applicants can get in touch with you to arrange a visit. So it's directly with you that they can get in touch with.
Yeah, but if you've got a friend who's here as a TI or a house officer already, then you can absolutely go via your friends as well. But yes, usually people will reach out to me either by email or come through the main telephonist, and they'll put you through to my phone. And then, as I say, if you're able to come for a visit, that's great. But if you're not, then we can equally have a Zoom or a Teams session and just talk through some things. And it gives you a chance to ask some more in-depth questions, and also me a chance to get to know you a little bit better.
And I guess on that note, just from an ACE perspective, on the ACE website, the employer information is all available there. So that's something else you can go and have a read through. We have an information sheet available, and all the contact details for the RMO unit is there. So on that note, I think we can come to a close. I don't know if we had any last comments that RMOs would like to share before we hand back over to Dr. Janine to close us off with the karakia.
I'd just like to say, no matter where you go, you'll have a good time. I think I enjoyed my TI year and my time at university, but actually it's not that scary stepping up to PGY1, or at least for me it hasn't been too bad, and look forward to it. It's fun. You feel like you're adding to the world instead of just taking.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it sometimes isn't. I think where you are has an impact and things like that, but sometimes it's who you're with, and if you've got a group of friends that are going somewhere, I think that's quite valuable, and staying as a group and having that support around. I think Fergus can probably agree. We were both part of the groups of trainee interns that stayed on here in Palmy, and just having that nearby and having those people that you knew really well and related to just made all the difference as well. So
if our participants didn't have an opportunity to ask any questions, as I mentioned, the information and the contact details is available on our ACE website, where you can contact the RMO unit directly. If you have any questions regarding the ACE process at all, please get in touch with me at any time. Our details are also available on the ACE RMO website. So on that note, thank you so much for your time. It's been really, really valuable, very informative. And I hope you all have a lovely evening. So Janine, I'll hand over to you to close us off with a karakia, please.
Yeah, thank you everyone. As Sam said, thanks for coming along and meeting us virtually at least. And thank you, Sam, for guiding us through. So, kia whakaria te tapu, kia wātia ai te ara, kia turu ki whakataha ai, kia turu ki whakataha ai, haumie, huie, tāi.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.